afternoon, and welcome to the Senior Hour, which is sponsored by Providence Holy Cross Medical Center, IMAC Med Spa, and Comfort Keepers Zone Home Care. I'm Barbara Cochran with my co-host,
Dr. Thomas Polucki.
on your hometown station, 98.1 FM, AM 1220 KHTS. This is a show for, about, and by seniors, giving information to enhance one's quality of life. And our first guest this afternoon, via a phone call, is my former co-host, Dr. Jean Dorio.
Barbara.
How are you?
Barbara, how are you?
I'm doing great, thank you.
I'm looking to see if I can see you on the Facebook. I don't know if they do Facebook anymore.
Oh, I don't know. Do you do Facebook?
Ask Carlos.
Yes.
Ask Carlos.
Yeah, we're on Facebook, Gene. How are you, sir?
Thomas, is that you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if that was you or AI.
Hey.
Yes, I am an avatar. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's kind of scary because they could take voices that go over the air and then imitate them. Hello, this is Dr. Polucki. I want you to take 2 milligrams of morphine sulfate IV right now.
Yeah, that's me.
Can you see that? I mean, that wasn't me. Yeah, it was an AI avatar.
So how are you doing?
Scary.
How are you doing, and how is Robin?
We're okay. We Wednesdays we go down to Cedars. We're going next Wednesday though, and so we're not there today. But sometimes we'll be on the way back and we'll be able to pick up the show in the North Valley, the Senior Hour. So it's been fun.
Okay, so how is the cancer treatment progressing?
She was just okay. We had good news today that we were going to be receiving immunotherapy.
Oh, good.
Starting next Wednesday.
Good.
Yeah. And we were waiting because we had to get approval. And, of course, if we didn't get approval, it's only $20,000 a dose.
Oh, you've got to be kidding me.
Nope.
That's absolutely ridiculous.
Yep. That's the way American medicine is these days. Right, Thomas?
Yeah, but, it has a tremendous track record. So the immunotherapy, depending on the type of cancer, is like a silver bullet.
Yeah, oh, yeah. And so we're hopeful for that. And then she has the advantage of possibly getting targeted therapy. So we'll see.
Awesome.
Terrific.
Well, that's what you got to focus on, right?
Yep, exactly.
She's getting the care she needs, and you're moving forward, and that's all great. And we've missed you here for a year.
I know. Well, it's been 8 months.
Yeah.
And so, but you gotta. If Tony got sick, you have to do what you got to do.
Well, yeah, you've missed a lot of drama here. I mean, you've got your hands full with that. Are you still practicing up here at all?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah,
good.
I'm still in practice. I do a lot of writing now too, since I am partly caregiver. So.
Sure. Yeah, so you need to figure out how you can, maybe consult or do some of that as far as your experience, first of all, as a doctor. For how long have you been practicing? Is it close to 50 years now?
42 years, I think.
42 years, and now you're a full-time caregiver on top of that. I mean, you've got a story to tell.
Yeah, and I like to write, so maybe I'll write something about it. We'll see.
There you go.
Well, now you don't have to go back east anymore.
No.
Good.
No. We go up to Sacramento once in a while. So.
Yeah.
Hey, when do we come on? It's already 12:10.
We're on the air, Gene.
We're on now.
Oh,
We've been on.
You've been listening to the Senior Hour.
I didn't know that because usually I hear the introduction.
Yeah. I guess you got cut out during that part, but yeah, we've been on the air. It's now called the Senior Moment, Gene.
There you go. Well, I wanted to talk to the audience and first of all mention that the Senior Hour and the Senior Moment has been on for, as of November, this coming November, I think will be 20 years.
Yes.
Right? And it all started with a gentleman named Don Gately. When KHTS came back on the air, Don Gately wanted to have the Senior Hour. 2 weeks after his first two shows, he invited me to be co-host. And, of course, I had no idea about being on radio. So I had to learn a lot, and I did. And through the help of Jerry Cerati Goldman and Carl Goldman, they tolerated my usual instincts. But let me go with Don, and Don had to leave the show. So, Barbara, you came on.
That's right.
And for the last, 18, 19 years, you have been on the show. And, it's been just one of those moments and times where, we've had to move forward because seniors, is a very large, about 21% of the population here in Santa Clarita. And they have to stay healthy. And one of the things I wanted to talk about today was hydration, especially with the weather, how it has been for the past several weeks, maybe over a month now, and 100-degree temperature. And I do house calls, and because I do, sometimes I go into homes and I'm able to take the temperature. And on occasion, I'll have patients that are living and surviving in over 90-degree temperature because they feel they can't afford the air conditioning. So they become dehydrated. And, once you become dehydrated, you are more susceptible to many other things like urinary tract infections, pneumonias, passing out, dizziness, low blood pressure, blah, 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 all of that. And you end up getting symptoms, which we probably should talk about. But one of the things when I first started medicine was that our Bible, which was Harrison's internal medicine, had one half of a page on dehydration. That was it. Now, of course, it's different. You can go online and, you can see and read about dehydration. But it's critical and important that friends, families, and our seniors remember that you have to drink fluids. And, sometimes it's constrained because of illnesses they might have, like congestive heart failure, kidney problems, things like that. But you want to make sure that you sustain your water levels. The water is essential for us. And I was listening, coming back up from Cedar Sinai, I was listening to caught the tail end of a conversation you were having with Adam Laraway from Focus Physical Therapy. And you guys were talking about hydration and fluids and things like that. And, of course, Barbara knows, and both you too, Thomas, that, I'm kind of a Gatorade freak. And, I drink Gatorade, Powerade, and all the athletic drinks. But most people don't know that in the past I was pretty athletic, and I had professional trainers for about a decade and learned how to remain hydrated. Plus, I was in the Gatorade study in 1966, 67, and 68. I learned how to maintain my fluid levels and be comfortable not only as an athlete, but, just surviving. But I've carried that on into my practice and allowed me to teach those who might be becoming dehydrated to recognize the symptoms and then to take care of it without ending up in the hospital. So hydration is key and important. And, I think that if we were able to sustain that, one of our biggest problems of hospitalization will diminish and people will do better. So, I don't know if either one of you have any questions right now, because as usual, Barbara, right? I've been jabbering too much.
Well, I have my water here. I keep
There
it
you
with
go.
me all the time.
Yeah, yeah. But there are, what I want to make sure is that our seniors, sometimes they are crimping on their air conditioning, but you can, if you there's a great transportation system in Santa Clarita arranged by our senior center and by the city of Santa Clarita, to move people around, seniors around, and if you have trouble keeping your home cool, you can go to the mall, you can go to the libraries, you can even go over to the senior center, of course, to remain cool as well. So there are places one can go to stay cool during the daytime. And one of the things to do is to keep an eye on one's home environment. And like I tell my patients, weigh yourself every day during this time of year when you are you might become dehydrated. Your weight could be an indicator that your volume is decreasing. Makes sense. So think about weighing yourself every day. Plus, taking your vital signs like your blood pressure, your pulse, and things like that. A lower blood pressure than normal could be reflective of dehydration. A higher pulse than normal could as well. So weight or weight loss, lower blood pressure, higher pulse, and then symptoms like dizziness, lightheadedness, nausea, vomiting, things like that could as well occur. And plus, in addition to that, you guys already know, and our listeners already know, that you can have, if you get food poisoning or something like that, you can be throwing up, or you can have diarrhea, or you can be perspiring a lot, and those can contribute to dehydration. And then rehydrating is the other problem. And of course, we talked about Gatorade and water, but when you're really sick and when your mental status is changing, that's a 911 call. And going to the hospital, they'll put an IV in you to try to get fluids back into you right away with the appropriate electrolytes. Staying hydrated is not an easy task here in Santa Clarita, but we're in the desert, and it's going to be hot. So accept that as a part of our living environment, and that you have to be mindful of making sure that you don't run into the problems of dehydration, because it could end up being, of course, catastrophic, as it results in falls and symptoms and things like that could end up threatening your life. So it's not easy to live here in Santa Clarita for many reasons, but it is great because we have the best little city in the world, and it's just fun. It's definitely fun to be here and survive here. So our seniors, listen heartily to your body, and those who are caregivers and watching their loved ones, keep a close eye on them, because mindfulness is and observation is key to keeping people out of the hospital.
Well, now, when you go visit your patients, do you constantly get on them to drink water and drink liquids?
Absolutely.
You have
Absolutely. And of course, I'm always asking, Barbara, and I take their blood pressure, I take their pulse, I find out what their weight was. I'm always asking them, about what those numbers as well. Plus, not that I'm that experienced, but of course, being in practice for over 40 years, kind of know there's no real test that you can do to say somebody is dehydrated. There's no real one factor that says you're dehydrated. But I can pretty much look at someone and just see how they're behaving, since I know my patients well, see how they are and moving around and things like that can sometimes give me a clue that something is wrong and we need to intervene with, giving fluids in some way or another.
So, Doc, can I make a quick suggestion?
Certainly.
So all the information you've given is amazingly important to look for the emergency of the emergency signs of dehydration. But I'm the kind of doctor that I am is you never want to face that emergency in the first place.
Right.
So as seniors, I mean, it's difficult to keep track. You know, if you don't have a system of knowing how much water you've taken in during the day, you don't know. Did I get my recommended 14 cups if I'm a woman or 18 cups if I'm a man? And what that translates into is it's about 3 quarts for a woman or nearly a gallon for a man. And that can be hard to keep track of.
Absolutely.
I'm not a big fan of the single-use plastic. I mean, that's getting a lot of negative attention anymore. But you can certainly have a couple of glass or even no BPA plastic pitchers out on your countertop. You know, the equivalent of 3 quarts for a woman or 4 quarts for a man, and have them filled up in the morning, and your mission is to have them drained by the end of the day.
Right.
And when I say by the end of the day, especially for the senior population, you probably want to get all those hydration requirements in before dinner, or it's going to cause you some, midnight trips to the bathroom, which can be dangerous.
Yep. Yeah, no doubt about it. And your own personal requirements will change because some people do not perspire, but others perspire a lot. And when it gets hot, and we don't have a lot of humidity here, so you're going to be evaporating fluid. So your losses during the summer months could be much higher. So you'll need to replenish that by having, like you said, fluid around you. And, in terms of the plastics and containers, they have a lot of these hydrating fluids that they're not fluids, but they're powder. And whether it be Gatorade or whatever it is, you don't have to be using plastics. You can have your own clean containers that you can put the powder in and fill it up with the appropriate amount of water and hydrate using that. So there are ways definitely get around the problems related to having so many containers. You're right. We want to diminish our footprint here and utilizing the powder forms. And as long as the water is okay, we can use that to, keep the environment safe, but also keep ourselves safe by hydrating.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those who aren't as big a fan as you are of Gatorade and the like, there's a pretty simple formula of a quarter teaspoon of table sugar, a quarter teaspoon of sea salt for every quart of water. Or I believe that's right. Or that it may be a gallon. I should double check that.
Now I remember that conversation. You had mentioned that with Adam Laraway.
Yep.
And I wanted to say to the radio as I was driving back up that the reason why there's sugar in the like Gatorade and Powerade is because the at least one, and now the studies have proven it, but even before the Gatorade people that came to our team said that claimed and was substantiated that the sugar content allows the fluid to be absorbed better and faster and more efficiently.
Absolutely.
So that is a part of the treatment plan, whether it's for everyone. Of course, diabetics and people who have other medical problems might not be able to take sugar, but it is a way to hydrate a little bit faster, especially when somebody, as you said, you don't want somebody to run into problems, and you want them during these months where there's a risk of getting too dry to be able to get fluids in a normal way and not get to the point where they could end up passing out or having some other medical problem because of it.
Well,
Sure.
I drink water. I do not like Gatorade. It's too sweet. Way too sweet. So.
And the nice part about the powder is that you can control that. You can take it, instead of using the full amount, use half the amount.
So you can get Gatorade powder?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
pretty much anywhere
absolutely.
that you buy Gatorade at, like a supermarket and any grocery store, right next to the liquid form, they should have a small container of the powder as well.
So should I start putting a little bit of powder in
Well,
my
if
water?
you say you don't like Gatorade,
No,
so
I
there is if you don't want to use my specific formulation of sugar and salt, which is essentially what Gatorade is, and then they add a whole bunch of stuff like the very controversial flame retardant.
No,
Why
I don't
that's in
like
there,
that.
I don't know.
like that.
And
right.
artificial flavors, sweeteners, and colors that have no business being in a critical hydration formulation. But even Pedialyte or variations of Pedialyte has the right electrolyte and sugar components that are going to make that, and you can get that in powder form too.
Oh, okay. Well, Gene, time has slipped away.
Isn't it?
Yes.
Did I jabber too much for you, Barb?
No. It's good to hear your voice. It's good to hear you.
Well,
it's like you were sitting right next to us. But we have to take a break and say goodbye to you.
Oh, you're very welcome. It was fun, but this is not really Gene Dorio, MD.
It's an avatar.
This is AI talking, and we just wanted to see whether you would be sucked in or not.
Oh, okay. All right, my love.
GTP, you did a great job impersonating our favorite medical doctor on the Senior Hour, KHTS, FM 98.1, AM 1220, yourhometownstation.com.
Welcome back to the Senior Hour. I'm Barbara Cochran with my co-host, Dr. Thomas Polucki, on your hometown station, 98.1 FM, AM 1220, KHTS. And our guest now is the one and only Adam Laraway from Focus Physical Therapy.
Hello
It's
there.
good to see you again.
Good to see you as well.
Yes. We were talking about you in the first half.
Yeah.
So I heard. So yeah, fill me in a little about what we were talking about.
So on the last show that we had, we were talking about hydration and how Dr. Dorio, who was the original host of this show, is a Gatorade, not just fan, but fanatic.
Okay.
Yes.
Fanatic. And I, for the past however many years I've been a guest on this show, 15 years, we've been going back and forth about the merits of Gatorade.
It's horrible.
Okay, so originally, in 67 or 68, the original study that Dr. Dorio was part of, by the way.
Wow.
Okay.
Yes.
Absolutely a huge game changer, literally. It was a football team, the Florida Gators. Yep. It's still happening today, passing out on the field from dehydration. And they were drinking water, but they were still passing out on the field from dehydration. And the formula changed all of that because it put a little sugar and it put a little salt in the formula in order to get water into the cells better.
Right.
And it's been literally a game changer. You see it on every professional team. You know, they've got like these superstars of sports endorsing this, and it's real. It's amazing. The formula has changed quite a bit in the past 30, 40, 50 years. Yeah. 50 years. And now it's got a whole bunch of stuff that I'm not a fan of.
Absolutely.
Most health conscious people are not fans of either. Yeah. Even if they are physically active, they'll take a cleaner choice if they can get it.
Absolutely.
So it's a pretty straightforward, simple formula of sugar, salt, and water does the trick. Everything else is kind of messing with that magic formula as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, Well, and interesting too. I know I've read about the original Gatorade. It didn't taste well or
No.
good at all.
Yeah, no.
It was disgusting.
Yeah.
They had to choke it down. But it got the minerals on board to get them to do what they needed it to do. And then they started adding all that other stuff to make it more palatable. And you know what happens when
now
you
it's
try
like
to make
candy,
it taste good.
so
Right,
it's
exactly.
an easy sell. Everybody loves the taste unless you're sensitive to it, like Barb. No, I don't like it.
It's too sweet.
No,
Way too sweet.
Pretty much all of them. There's even now, because I think it was too sweet for most serious athletes who have a serious aversion to sugar.
Yeah.
And not even just the actual sugar, but the taste of sugar. You train yourself to get away from sugar, right? You don't want that sweet tooth. So they cut back and they made a light formula, but it's still disgusting.
Well, now they have the 0 calorie, but I worry what they're putting in that to get it to taste.
It's not even just what it tastes like. If it's 0 calories, that means its hydration ability has decreased because part of the reason that they put sugar in the first place was to push the water into the cells, and you can't do that on 0 calories.
Right. Yeah,
so
exactly.
I question the whole.
Really?
Yeah, I question the whole methodology now.
Yeah, I worry too. Like I don't, and then this is getting out of my area of expertise, but like with sugar alcohols and stuff like that they disrupt the gut health. From what I do know.
Yep.
And so that's a little bit of a concern. So they make it sweet, but no calories. But there's a cost to that.
And put an additional load on the liver and on the kidneys and on the gut, all the things that you're trying to avoid. Yep. So all of these cheats, are not free.
Right.
But it's interesting. My son is a no sugar person. He's constantly on me when he comes and takes care of me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No sugar, Mom. No sugar. And has a fit when I ask for my glass of wine at night.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have 1 glass of wine at night, and nobody is going to take that away from me. Not even him.
Right.
And he and I go at it every time he's down.
Yeah.
Constantly.
Yeah. Well,
No,
for a hot minute, they were saying that a glass of wine is actually good for you, and they bought some studies to support that. But they've backed off of that and said, well, if you have 1 ounce of alcohol a night, it probably doesn't do you too much harm. It actually can clear out some of the gunk in the liver at 1 ounce of alcohol. So that's probably a standard 8 ounce, maybe. What does it say on the bottle? Because on the bottle it should tell you how many ounces that is right there.
There's about 6 ounces probably.
6 ounces. Okay, so that's a pretty standard restaurant size pour.
That's what I have every night.
It's going to give you a little more than an ounce of alcohol there. Just a smidge more. So you're okay. It's not doing you too much harm.
Well,
yeah.
I'm 86 years
right.
old now.
Right? You're going to argue with that?
I'm not giving up anything at this point.
Right.
And I argue with my son constantly.
Yeah.
No, Mom, that's not good for you. Hey, I've lived this long, and I've eaten and drunk all this, and I'm still here.
Right.
Leave me alone.
There you go. There you go. But you don't want to say that. Listen, it's good for you. Here's the proof that I did it. You take that kind of advice. There are the people like Keith Richards, who is probably going to outlive us all.
Now,
but
who's
it doesn't.
Keith Richards?
He's the guitar player for the Rolling Stones.
That
and
one.
A very,
How old
very. He's getting up there. A very hard lifestyle through the 60s, through the 70s, through the 80s. He only cleaned up maybe towards the end of the 90s, but you can't say, well, look, if it's good for Keith, it must be good for everybody. And it doesn't work like that. He is an absolute exception to the rule.
Well, I'm not going to give up my glass of wine.
No,
not with my
that's
dinner
fine.
at night.
There you go. So, Adam, what do you want to talk about today?
Let's see. Well, we were talking about hydration. We were talking about the back last time. I thought maybe we would talk about shoulder pain. What do you think? Oh. Anybody got any shoulder pain?
No.
Constantly, always rehabbing it. That's the magic formula. I am not convinced that there is a great option out there I know I have patients come in who say that PRP is magic, that stem cells are magic, that their surgeon is a magician, all of that, but yet they're still coming to me to treat their shoulder pain.
Yep.
So I'm like, okay, how magical is that really?
Right.
So there is some benefit out there, and there is some absolute need for some emergency interventions.
Yep.
But I think you and I are going to be on the same page with this. The best approach is always going to be rehab.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and it's fun. Shoulder's probably one of my favorite joints to treat. It's the most mobile joint that we have in our body. It's a ball and socket joint, so it, you can really reach. You can reach behind you and forward and up and all these different things.
You can do all kinds of things.
But because of that mobility,
with your legs, you're not. You're limited.
Yeah. And the hip joint is a ball and socket joint too, but it's a deeper socket, so you don't have quite as much mobility in your hip as you do in the shoulder.
It's a lot of mobility.
Exactly. But with that much mobility in a joint, the muscles have to hold it together and do their job. And so if you've got some instability, so some weakness, it's a recipe for disaster. I always joke around with my patients, because your shoulder blade, which is your scapula, is what creates the socket. And it's literally only attached to your trunk by muscles. The only place you have a bone-to-bone connection is at your collarbone, the clavicle.
Okay, so I do a lot of exercises holding on to the sink.
Yeah.
With my legs.
Yes.
But I don't do that much with my
your
arms.
Yep, which is important because
so
you got to have that stability.
What kind of exercises? Up and down?
Well, we do lots of stuff. A lot of times we'll be using bands or weights, and we give different exercises to stabilize the muscles that really stabilize the shoulder blade. Because if your shoulder blade is not stable, then it doesn't have a stable base to push from.
Okay,
and so I always joke around with my patients. I say, look, you're trying to balance a plate on a stick. It doesn't work. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And so we work a lot of muscles with, like squeezing your shoulder blades back. We had a lot of times we'll add resistance, but there's a lot of different muscles. Exactly, yeah. And you can do stuff with weights as well. But it's really important that if we don't have that stability at your shoulder blade, at your scapula, then everything else kind of down the chain has to compensate. And we're seeing more and more, I'm sure Dr. Polucki is going to agree with me on this one, but as we see more and more of the forward head posture, rounded shoulders, because we're in bad posture with our phones and our computers and all that type of stuff, the shoulder blade's now not in the right spot. And so then that creates, just a trouble from the beginning. And it's a lot of fun to work with people and get that stability back and get things moving.
Oh, so many times I see women with walkers and they're like this.
Yep. So they're in that forward position.
Lift them up, lift them up. Mine are up so that I'm standing up straight.
Absolutely.
But I was at one time leaning down.
Yep.
And I thought, wait a minute.
Yep.
Because
but
it was
then
starting to
put your shoulders into that spot, and then all of a sudden try and lift that arm, it doesn't want to go.
That's right.
Yep.
So this is up as high as it'll go.
Yeah.
But at least I'm walking upright.
Yep. And you're starting to see now, like they have more upright walkers with platforms and stuff to keep you even more upright. A little more cumbersome, but they serve the purpose for certain appropriate person. But
in fact, my kids keep saying, "Mom, you've got to get one of those stand-up ones."
Yeah. But it's amazing too, like with shoulder stuff, how much, especially if it's your dominant side, you don't realize how just little movements, can be really difficult if the shoulder's not feeling great. So I had two ladies that I worked with, no joke, probably 20 years ago, and they both came in, were doing great prior to this visit. It was on the same day, literally I think within about a couple hours of each other, and they both came in flared up like crazy, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. And I was kind of going through the last couple days of activities with them, and the first one that clued me in was, she said, "Oh, I've been writing all my Christmas cards." And you think, well, she's not really lifting her shoulder, right? But if you think about that, if you're writing, not on a computer, you're writing, you're just tethering back and forth on the same spot over and over and over and over again.
Right, and you're hunched over.
Exactly. And so kind of put two and two together, that was what flared her shoulder up. And then literally probably 2 hours later, I had another patient, similar age, and she came in flared up and had been doing really good. And I said, by any chance, were you doing Christmas cards? Because, not many people write Christmas cards anymore.
No, they don't.
And she started laughing. She was like, "Yeah, why?" And I said, "That's why your shoulder's hurting. You were just tethering back and forth." So it was kind of funny. But it's just those little things
That's
you don't think about. If you're
That's
typing
right.
on a computer, you think, well, I'm not really moving my shoulder. I'm just moving my wrist. But you are moving. You're using a lot of those muscles in the shoulder, and it's all connected. So it's really important to have that stability in the shoulder.
Yeah, I don't use the computer much anymore.
Yeah.
Not worth sitting there
Yeah.
and doing nothing. That's what it boils down to. But
Right.
when I go in and turn on my email, good glory, I must have 100 emails there
Right.
or more.
It's amazing how much they accumulate quickly.
Oh,
for sure.
jeez, they really do.
And most of them, like you say, aren't an
Nothing.
emergency or anything
They're
you
garbage.
need to do with.
Absolute garbage.
Yeah. So when you come into physical therapy, with a shoulder problem, we put you through an evaluation and we try and figure out like which muscles are weak, which ones are maybe spasming or overworking. And a lot of times people try to lift their arm, but they're lifting their shoulder up by their ear, and that is going to cause a lot of compression in the joint and not feel good. And so sometimes it's just a matter of getting the mechanics to correct, and then things start feeling better. So, anyways, they're a lot of fun. I thought shoulder would be a fun one to talk about.
Very interesting. Because you use your shoulders a
Absolutely.
tremendous amount of time.
Yeah. Well, just
And
like
you don't even think about it.
self-care, going to the bathroom,
Yeah.
having to tuck a shirt in,
Washing your face.
put a belt, through the back loops in your pants.
I've never thought about it.
But boy, I
Wow.
tell you, when it's hurting, those little things, you realize them right away.
That's very true. Very true.
Yep.
Wow.
Driving, holding the car, if you got your hands on the wheel, you're turning a little bit, and those definitely make a difference. So there's a lot of activities that you don't realize until all of a sudden that shoulder is flared up and doesn't want to move well.
Interesting. So far, I'm good shape. I don't have any shoulder problems.
It's kind of fun. So again, we talk about the newbie and our piece of equipment that we use, and so we can map, your whole kind of upper quadrant, we call it, that shoulder area and upper back and arm, and when we find those spots, and it's funny, like sometimes we literally will have patients that come in and can't lift their arm above their shoulder height, and we map them, we find the spot, and the next thing you know, they're going all the way up, and it's just like amazing. So it's a lot of fun to really kind of figure out. And what's really crazy is sometimes where the pain isn't where the problem is. More often than not, I think Dr. Polucki would back me up on that, but that's what's so much fun with the newbies, because we can map, and like literally I've had patients where they map positive on something in their forearm, and we go through movement patterns, and all of a sudden the shoulder starts moving better, which still kind of blows my mind.
That's interesting, because I know when I have treatments from you, you start up here, and oops, I can feel it down here.
Yep. It's all connected.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, and that's what's so cool about using the newbie is that we literally can map that whole spot, and it may be something in your back that's causing the problem in the shoulder.
And the interesting thing about being in practice for years, decades, you start to realize the textbooks, the training you get, formal education you get, is really just a generalization. But so many times, if it's in the text and it's well cited and well referenced, it's considered factual for everyone. And a shortcut in any kind of healthcare practice is to just say, well, this is what the facts are. This is what the evidence shows. This is what, and the reality is that it doesn't matter if it's not appropriate for that individual, and that's what we see.
Right.
Dealing with these patients that, well, it should only be this, but that's not you, and that's why you're not better. And that's, what your technology is able to point out, like you just said. Yeah. There's no way that a forearm muscle should cause a shoulder problem.
Right.
In the textbooks, that'd be heresy.
Right, exactly.
It doesn't happen, but it does. It does happen.
Yeah.
And that's the beautiful thing about having somebody who knows, has the technology to backtrack and figure out why you're not better already when you've already tried everything and been a good patient and done everything that's been asked of you, and you're still not better.
Yep.
Yeah, we need to take a break, okay? I'm Barbara Cochran with my co-host, Dr. Thomas Polucki, on your hometown station, 98.1 FM, AM 1220 KHTS. Welcome back to the Senior Hour. I'm Barbara Cochran with my co-host Dr. Thomas Polucki on your hometown station 98.1 FM, AM 1220 KHTS, and we're speaking with Adam Laraway from Focus Physical Therapy. And let's go for it again.
You bet. We were talking before the break about shoulder pain and kind of some of the causes of shoulder pain. But, what can we do to try and prevent it? And so I would say probably your number one thing to do is really focusing on your posture, making sure you're keeping your head up, your shoulders back and down, to be honest with you, and really try and keep those shoulder blades, against the trunk. And so doing some simple exercises where you're just kind of squeezing your shoulder blades down and back, holding for 5 seconds, is a good place to start. Making sure your head is in a neutral position. Sometimes people will get really tight in their chest muscles, and so we do what's called a doorway stretch, where you put your arms up on the door and you kind of lean into it just to kind of help stretch out those chest muscles.
That's interesting.
Kind of bring your shoulders back, and then you got to have the strength in your upper back to hold them into that position. And so, those are some real easy exercises to kind of do some preventative stuff for posture. But if you're still having some issues, then you got to come in and have an evaluation with us, and so we can figure out what's going on and how to fix it.
Yeah, that is great information. One point that I'd like to, if I may, most people injure their shoulders by reaching or grabbing or falling or putting their shoulder in a position, and I see it, not necessarily in seniors, but I see it a lot in younger people when they start a new exercise routine. Mm-hmm. And my rule of thumb is the further your elbow gets away from your side, the more your shoulder is at risk. So if you're doing an exercise, you want to try to keep your elbow in tight to your body. And if you are in an emergency situation where you have to grab something or you have to push away something quickly, you really need to be self-aware of how tight your elbow is into your body, because it's about 1.5 feet away from your shoulder joint, and that's where when it's extended out, and that's where you really put the shoulder at high risk for injury. As long as it's in tight to the body, it's a very strong setup, but a high risk for injury anywhere away from your body.
Absolutely. Yeah, you got physics playing in there, a lot more leverage and stuff as you get away from your body.
No, you don't want to do any of that ever. I see a lot of exercise programs, especially targeted, even just air.
Yeah.
That far out from the body, it puts a lot of strain on the shoulder. And, you see these, bodybuilders with cannons on their shoulders.
Right.
But they're telling people very risky stuff. The shoulder muscles are not that big. Mm-hmm. They're not the big muscles of the back, which they sink into, and you can do a lot of damage very quickly if you're not very careful.
Is that bad?
That's okay, because your elbow is not being pushed away from your body. You can raise it up, but as soon as you raise it out, there's a high risk of shoulder injury.
Mm-hmm. Oh. Well,
so all of these kind of things, these kind of movements where you're pulling your arm away from your body out to the side,
is not good.
It's risky. It's very risky.
Putting a lot of torque on the shoulder. So simple things with just, picking up a grocery bag from the floor to put it up to the counter. If it's really heavy, that's a lot of force, a lot of torque on that shoulder.
Very true.
Yeah, keep the elbows in tight. I'm sorry to
Very
you're
true.
good.
No, you're good.
Well, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And I work with patients all the time where, if they go to the gym and say they want to do a bench press, and, it's amazing how they try and do this bench press at 90 degrees, and as soon as you lower it down to 45 or even closer, and they do that bench press or a push-up, the pain goes away.
Yeah.
Because, as Dr. Polucki was saying, you're putting all that torque on that joint, and the muscles are just not there to stabilize that in that position. And that's how we see people get hurt pretty easily. So, but it's functional all day long.
I don't do push-ups anymore.
We can teach you to do wall push-ups.
There you go.
Those.
Wall push-ups?
Yeah, do a push-up on the wall. Decrease your lever arm.
Yeah. Okay. But I don't get on the floor
with the arms down
anymore.
at your side, not away from your body. For sure.
Weight.
Yep.
So like this.
Yep.
Yep.
Oh.
Yeah, it's all good.
Like I said, you learn something new every day, don't you?
Every day you come here. That's what we're here for.
That's true. That's very interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
No more of these.
Yeah, not out to the side. It's no
No.
good.
Okay.
All right, Adam, give us your contact information, please.
All right, we are located at 25050 Peachland Avenue, Suite 205. Our phone number is 661-255-4205, and our website is www.focusphysicaltherapyscv.com.
Adam Laraway, Focus Physical Therapy. Always a pleasure to have you in the studio with us. You've been listening to the Senior Hour, KHTS 98.1 FM, AM 1220, yourhometownstation.com. We're sponsored by Comfort Keepers, Providence Holy Cross, and iMac Med Spa. Now go out and enhance your quality of life.